Hi, welcome to the Topsy Turvy School Bus Theater. I'm Ben Cohen. I started Ben & Jerry's, but I've learned that there are some things in life that are even more important than ice cream. Take, for example, the federal budget.
Federal budget? What do I care?
Well, it's your money, and the way it's sliced up is why there's 20,000 kids in New Hampshire without health insurance, our schools are strapped for cash, and our country is still addicted to oil. I'm president of the Priorities Campaign. Over 500,000 Americans, including business leaders, military authorities, congresspeople, religious leaders, local and state legislators, and ordinary citizens from all across America. What we've discovered is that most Americans have no idea how the government's spending our money. I mean, I never did. But when we find out, people are pretty shocked, and they want to make some very major changes. This pie chart represents the federal discretionary budget. That's the amount of money that Congress has available to allocate after mandatory expenses like interest on the national debt and Social Security have been paid for. As you can see, things like education, health care, energy independence, they get the little slices on the bottom. And what's known as the peacetime Pentagon budget gets the entire top half. And that doesn't include additional money for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Polling has shown that once Americans find out about this, over 2/3 of them want to take some money out of the Pentagon and use it here in our local communities for our children, energy independence, and paying down the national debt. Well, as we all know, it's a dangerous world out there. So we asked a board of military experts if shifting some money out of the Pentagon would put us at risk. They told us that the Pentagon is continuing to this day to build extraordinarily expensive weapon systems that were designed during the Cold War to fight the former Soviet Union and are of no benefit in protecting us from today's terrorist threats. Dr. Lawrence Korb is the former Assistant Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan. He produced a report that identifies each one of those weapon systems, how much they cost, and why they're no longer needed. It adds up to $60 billion a year that is being spent on weapons. That's a great deal for weapons manufacturers, lobbyists, and politicians who benefit from their contributions and jobs. But it's a bad deal for the rest of us. In fact, spending on these weapon systems ends up taking money from the armor that our troops really need and actually makes us less secure. So here's what it looks like back on the pie chart. Now, what would happen if we took that $60 billion a year and put it where it would do some good? Well, this is a complex problem, so it can get kind of confusing. You know, basically I'm a dessert guy, and when I'm faced with a difficult problem, I tend to think about dessert. In this case, Oreo cookies. Let's say one Oreo equals $10 billion. So what I've got here is a stack of 50 Oreos or $500 billion. That's the amount of money we spend on the so-called peacetime Pentagon budget every year. And that's what that counter at the bottom of the screen has been counting. The amount we spent on the Pentagon since the video began. And that doesn't include another $125 billion, another 12 and a half Oreos, that we're currently spending on the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, compared to that, let's see what the federal government spends on some of these other things. On education K-12 at the federal level, we spend 4 Oreos, $40 billion. On world hunger, we spend 1 Oreo, $10 billion. On children's health care, we spend 5 Oreos, $50 billion. On energy independence, that's 1/4 of an Oreo. On job training, we spend 3/4 of an Oreo. And on deficit reduction, we spend nothing. Now, all we're saying at the Priorities Campaign is, let's take 6 Oreos off the top here. Put 1 on education K-12, and that would be enough money to rebuild all of our schools over a period of 10 years. Take 1 more, and then a half, you've all done this before, put it on world hunger, for $15 billion a year, that would be enough to provide food self-sufficiency for all of the 6 million kids around the world that are currently dying of starvation. Take another cookie, put it on children's health care, and that would be enough to provide health insurance for every kid in the United States that currently doesn't have it. Take another one, put it on energy independence, and at $10 billion a year over 10 years, that would be enough to reduce our need for Mideast oil by 50% through weatherization and incentives to buy hybrid cars. Take another half, put it on job training, and that would be enough to provide job training for another 250,000 laid-off workers. And take that last Oreo and do, well, whatever you want with it. We could start to pay down the national debt, or maybe you'd use some of this money for better health care for veterans, or to build some affordable housing for working families, or invest in quality pre-kindergarten programs. The point is, $10 billion is an unbelievably huge amount of money. We could accomplish a lot with it, and we could do it all without raising taxes or creating new ones.
But isn't that going to make our armed forces weak? We'll be vulnerable.
Vulnerable to who? The highest spending potential adversary is China, and they spend 10 Oreos, $100 billion a year, and they're our major trading partner. The next highest spending potential adversary is Russia. They spend 6 Oreos, and they're pretty much an ally these days. The countries we're really concerned about, Iran, Libya, North Korea, and Cuba, they spend a grand total of 1 Oreo, all together, all combined. So as you can see, even after taking off enough Oreos off that Pentagon stack to take care of all those social needs, there's still more than enough to go around to take care of all of these guys. Admiral Shanahan is the chairman of our board of military advisors. He wants to give you just one example of those Cold War weapons we're still paying for.
My name is Jack Shanahan, Vice Admiral, U.S. Navy, retired. One of our nuclear bombs blows up Hiroshima 15 times over. 5 devastates Russia. After that, this is how many the U.S. has left. I feel safe reducing nuclear weapons. Do you?